You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to this special edition of Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. A few days ago, the world lost a great writer, Ursula K. Le Guin. That word, great, is tossed around like confetti. But in this case, it's simple fact. This country, too, lost one of its sharpest consciences, who ceaselessly reminded us that freedom was everyone's birthright, and fighting to keep it was our job, yours and mine. WMC Live strives to be political in a deep sense, but whether or not we accomplish that, Ursula did, not through jargon, but through stories, through her own aesthetic genius and sweat-soaked craft. She was a frequent visitor to this program, so I have culled excerpts from those exclusive interviews and conversations from 2012 through last year, 2017, including readings of her poetry for this special celebration of her life and work. Ursula Kroeber Le Guin was born in 1929 in Berkeley, California. She died on January 22nd at age 88 in Portland, Oregon, where she had lived for many years. She's survived by her husband Charles and their 3 grown children. She's also survived by 23 novels, 12 collections of stories, 5 books of essays, 13 books for children, 9 volumes of poetry, and 4 books of translation. Her own works are translated into virtually every written language. Among her numerous honors are the Hugo, Nebula, and National Book Awards, Penn Malamud Award, Library of Congress Living Legend, and the National Book Foundation Medal. Those are the surface facts. But if we rummage through life's sewing basket of scraps filled with less superficial truths, we would find oddities and endearments, some of which I'll relate at the end of the program. But always the scraps would assemble into one pattern, the center to which all paths led, the reason she was on this planet: words, writing. She wrote in every genre, churning and spinning and spilling like white water over boundaries, furious when they tried to define or contain her. She maintained her own balance of excellence across categories, yet she was undeniably at her finest as a storyteller. Her so-called science fiction works, especially The Lathe of Heaven and The Left Hand of Darkness, have entered into the canon of American literature. Her so-called fantasy quartet, Earthsea, has been rightly called work that made her the heir and the equal to Tolkien. I'm not the only one to think she should have won the Nobel Prize in Literature. When I began these interviews, I was, frankly, nervous, reverent, not a little scared. You can hear it in my voice. But as the years passed and we became closer, as we began exchanging work in manuscript, as we indulged in long, personal, womanly conversations, by email or by phone, and some memorable visits in person, the fear melted away, and what remained is laughter and love. You can hear that in these conversations, too. So this program is meant as a tribute to Ursula K. Le Guin from another scrap in her sewing basket. I was one of her rapt readers. I was privileged to be a personal friend. I am someone who will never be able to stop missing her. Welcome, Ursula, to Women's Media Center Live.
Good morning, Robin.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. I want to start with talking about this specific new genre that I have discovered. It is an entire genre based on the question, what does Ursula K. Le Guin really write? Does she write science fiction? Does she write speculative fiction? Does she write non-realism or realism or fantasy ad infinitum? And I have discovered the answer to this question. I think she writes literature. Tell me.
Well, I was going to answer, does she write, realism, non-realism? I was just going to say yes.
That's another very good answer.
but I'll accept literature. Yeah.
What is this specifically an American disease, this categorization? I think of the Latin Americans with magical realism, with Borges, with Allende. I think of the Europeans with Kafka and Hesse, and the Brits, my God, from Swift and C.S. Lewis through Tolkien and Woolf. What is the problem we seem to be having here?
I think the problem stems from kind of early modernist theory, which sort of declared that realism was the only thing that made literature, and anything fantastic was essentially for children, was kind of outside the pale. And Americans tend to take these things awfully literally.
Yeah. What do you do with Shakespeare?
And then, of course, as fantasy and science fiction got established as successful commercial genres, that lowered them in the estimation of many of the critics and professors. You know.
Because Tolkien is taught as literature in Britain. I mean,
but you know, there's a lot of Brits who sneer at him. Like, he can't be for literature because children can read it, you know, which would include books like Huckleberry Finn and Kim, but never mind. Yeah.
It's very irritating, and I think we should mount a campaign against critics and booksellers who categorize this way. It's completely arbitrary, and it has not.
Well,
you called it this wonderful thing.
I've been running that campaign for decades, Robin, and the thing is, you must. I think there is a legitimate distinction commercially. There are people who read realism don't want to find themselves suddenly stumbling into science fiction without being warned.
I think they should.
To identify books by genre is okay. To judge them by genre is what's wrong. Is to say, if it's science fiction, it can't possibly be good.
Yeah.
If it's good, it can't possibly be science fiction. That's that's just arbitrary, as you say, and stupid.
And it is an imposition and against literature. It really is. It is
indeed.
It stinketh.
What are you going to do with a writer like Michael Chabon, who just waltzes across all those genre distinctions happily? You know.
Well, I would argue that the great writers always do, and to me, you're one of them. But I have 3 questions from 3 Le Guinians. Now, you may wonder what a Le Guinian is, but a Le Guinian...
they live on the planet Le Guin.
That's absolutely correct. Just like, remember they used to say about Graham Greene's work that he wrote about a particular landscape that was Greenland? Well, Le Guinians inhabit Laguinia. And one question is from my son, who has wondered this since he was 13 years old. It is about the great teacher of Ged in the Earthsea books, and he whose name is followed with the silent. And how is it a hard G or a soft G in pronouncing Ogion?
I say Ogion.
Ogion.
Ogion. Yeah, the G's as in Ged are generally hard.
I thought since Ged was that maybe Ogion would be too, but I didn't know, and you should know.
In the dreadful movie they made of it here, they managed to call him Ogion. Because they didn't bother to ask the author.
Why would they do that?
The language she invented, you know.
Why would they ever do such a thing?
Oh, well.
Yeah. All right. Now, the second question is much more complex and profound. It quotes you as having once said that the creative adult is the child who survived. And the question is, how did you save the child in yourself, and did you ever lose it?
No, I think most artists. I think part of their survival as artists is the survival of the child in them. I don't mean that they're childish.
No, I know.
At all. And if let's not get off on the inner child, because that really spooks me.
You mean?
Although I think originally what was meant was simply that kind of not losing touch with your own origins, with who you have always been. You know,
the you-ness of you.
Yeah. Right. Because as soon as you see a baby, you realize, my God, it's a person.
Mm.
You know, it takes very little time for the little newborn to, you know, look at you from far, far away, and you realize that's a person looking out at you.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the you-ness.
And the quality of play also, of serious, real, wow, play, I think is needed.
Yeah, exactly.
If you lose that as an artist.
Kids are allowed to play, and so are artists.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the good stuff about being an artist, yeah. You may starve to death, but you're going to play as you do it. And,
right.
And the third question is about your magnificent translations. The great Lao Tzu that you have done, which is my special love, and the Angelica Gorodischer work, Kalpa, and others. This is from a writer friend who herself, English is not her mother tongue, so she is very concerned about translation. Is there a special satisfaction, and what is it in translation for you, since you're such an amazing writer yourself?
Oh, I love it. I love translating because the author of the work did the really hard work. The author dug it up out of the earth and refined it into gold. And all I have to do is try to carry some of the gold over into my language. And there is an element of discovery and creation in it, but it's also almost like a word game. It has the satisfaction of solving a puzzle.
Yeah. So it's about language.
Brood about a word, and then maybe sometimes that's how to say it, you know. So I love translating. I always have.
And you once said that your plotting is not your strong point. Characters and language are. So this takes that away from your responsibility. That's right.
They figured out the plot and the characters, and they you know, the author does all the hard work, the really hard work. Translation it can be laborious, and of course, I am a very lucky person. I only translate what I want to when I want to do it. A professional translator has to translate stuff they don't even like.
Yeah,
that is not.
That would be dreary.
That's not fun. But what I do is fall in love with something, and therefore want to know it more closely. And the way to know something closely is to put it into my own language.
Either that or teach it, yes, which is in effect the same thing.
Which I have not. I'm not good at teaching literature. I've tried it, and I don't have the knack.
Well,
but I do have some knack for this falling in love with the text and bringing it over into English.
I think your book's about writing, steering the craft, I think, is an amazing guidepost.
Well, that's about writing, but it's not so much about reading. I am awed by people who can. I had teachers who taught me how to read, and I'm very grateful. And I mean all the way up through graduate school.
Yeah, which is a skill in itself. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask one more question in this segment, which I will be drawn and quartered if I do not ask, which is about the feminist influence on your work, notably in Left Hand of Darkness, which I think was written out of sheer imagination before you became a feminist, but I'm not sure. But it goes straight through Tehanu and, oh my God, Lavinia, which you published right when I was trying to finish a novel, and which absolutely paralyzed me. It was so brilliant.
Well, you shouldn't read novels when you're writing one.
Well, now I know.
That's very dangerous.
Thank you very much. Now I know. But yeah, talk a little bit about that. The feminist influence on your work.
Oh, well, I've always called myself a feminist, I guess, but the word has changed its meaning several times radically during my long lifetime. In 1968, when I was writing Left Hand of Darkness, I would have called myself a feminist because I had been brought up, thanks to my mother, on Virginia Woolf's feminist nonfiction.
Yes.
A Room of One's Own and Three Guineas. That's pretty hideous stuff for a teenager.
It's good stuff. Yes, it's great.
And then, after all, the American feminism and French feminism, there were some important texts came out in the early 60s, and I had read them. And I was aware that the construction of gender, although we didn't have that phrase yet, was being questioned. Mm-hmm. And so I had a lot of help to get started on writing this book where I deconstruct gender rather radically. Mm. And then when well, very briefly, when feminism began to declare kind of that motherhood was a sort of a bad thing, I thought I couldn't be a feminist because I had 3 kids. Oh, and I felt I'd done the right thing in having them, and I was very fond of them.
We never did that, you know. It was a media myth.
But there were, you know what I mean? There was
yes,
a kind
I do.
of unfriendliness. I was a housewife, for God's sake,
yes,
with
I know.
3 kids.
Exactly.
And I was not supposed to be a housewife with 3 kids.
Right.
So I felt like I couldn't be a feminist for a while. Then I got wise, and then all the wonderful the literary feminists came along and kind of told me what to read, and all the women writers I hadn't read and so on. Mm. And so I came back happily.
The female characters, and for that matter, the male characters in your work and how they've changed, even let's say in the Earthsea books, you can see the consciousness shift and change and grow. And
that was literally consciousness raising happened to me. Mm-hmm. About the time that I finished the 3rd book of Earthsea. And then it took 17 years of kind of putting it away and letting it cook in my unconscious and thinking about other things consciously before I could write the 4th book. Mm. And tell the same story but from a different point of view.
I'll say. We're gonna have to pause here and take a break, but we'll be right back.
Okay.
And indeed, we will have to take a short break here at Women's Media Center Live's celebration of the life and work of Ursula K. Le Guin. But don't go anywhere. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back in just a second with more of the same, even better.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back. I'm Robin Morgan, and this is Women's Media Center Live's special edition, exclusive interviews with Ursula K. Le Guin, who made many visits to this program, and we've culled some of the best moments from all of them. I want to talk about the 3 new books, or the 2 books in 1 and 2 volumes. The prose is The Unreal and the Real, Selected Stories. Volume 1, Where on Earth, and Volume 2, I love it, Outer Space, Inner Lands. And also the new book of poems, which is the new and selected, called Finding My Elegy, which has your best poetry to date in it, and is absolutely sublime. Let's talk about the books of stories. How you chose them, which you discuss in one of the introductions, is hilarious and in exactly the same tone we've come to expect from you, which is wise and unsentimental and loving and hilariously funny, and then hits you with a double kick.
Well, you want me to sort of repeat that? It's just that nobody would help me select them. I thought I would have an editor sort of pouncing over and saying, "No, we have to have this one," and so on. And actually, Gavin and Kelly, who are Small Beer Press, they did insist on just two stories being in, very short ones. But mostly what I was faced with, just I don't know how. I've written well over 100 short stories, and how do you pick?
Yeah, how do you pick?
You know. So I just I would put them in the heaps and say, no, that can go out, but that one can't go out, until I finally got the heaps small enough. And then I had to sort them and which one goes where. And is that science fiction or who cares? And that it was an extremely confused process.
Well, it doesn't show that, and I haven't yet. I'm not completely through them, but I haven't yet discovered an omission that has me outraged, writing you a long and very cranky letter as why this favorite one is not in. So far so good. And
good.
And the breaking of them up into where on earth and the outer space, inner lands satisfies, I'm sure, the genre folks, but it also shows the span of your reach, which is considerable.
Well, good, because that is precisely what I was hoping to somehow do.
Now, talk about Finding My Elegy, which is a new and selected poems from a number of the previous books, and plus these extraordinary new poems that you've been writing all this time when you were complaining to me that I can't find a story.
But of course, poems come all at once.
Yep.
And then, of course, you may work on them and come back and saw on the darn thing for months or years. But there is a satisfaction in writing a longer piece of prose fiction to me that is such a different satisfaction, because you come back to it day after day and it's there to be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And it wants to be told, And but I've sort of lost that. It's apparently an energy thing of being in my mid-80s. But the poems still come sometimes. And I do want to mention what you wouldn't know from the book, is that I belong to a group of working poets, a little peer group of poets for years now.
Yes.
With several of us have been in the group for quite a long time, and that almost every poem in the last half of that book, and some in the first half, come out of that group. And many of them were written to assignments that we give each other in the group. Mm-hmm. And they were worked over by the group so that I could take them home and I see what's wrong. I just want to say this because I think for poets who work in solitude, some of them want that, but for some, to get into a group like this is just kind of life-giving.
The workshop experience.
A workshop, although a homegrown workshop.
Yes.
One thing it does is it makes you write a poem that month.
Precisely.
Because you got to bring one.
Precisely. Yeah, I have an artists' night group, which is actually mixed arts, music as well as poetry.
Oh, neat.
But it is pretty damn neat. You're right, and it, if for no other reason, and there are other reasons, for the deadline, and it makes you come with something new. It's too humiliating to say I have nothing this week. Oh my God, or this month. But
yeah, you feel kind of inadequate. Yeah.
Well, I know what you mean about long fiction or longer fiction, rather fiction as opposed to poetry, because it's a whole world that you inhabit and you can return to, whereas a poem can sweep you off your feet like a tsunami or a tornado, and then be done with you.
And a short story can do that too. A really short story may have to be written in a breath, as it were. Mm-hmm. And if you don't write it then, it's gone, like a poem.
I have not written stories.
Grab it as it flies thing with short writing. And that makes it scary but exciting. People
should also know that you blog, and you blog the way that you write, which is great fun to read, and also then so there's this sudden little profound hit, and you think, well, wow.
Who taught me that I might be able to blog?
Who taught you?
Is the great Nobel Prize winner José Saramago, the Portuguese novelist. He blogged when he was 86 and 87. He was blogging. And I
Wow.
thought, hey, I could try
You
that.
can do that. Damn
Yeah.
right.
Nothing like having a good model, you know.
Well, it's so wonderful whether you're blogging about the new acquiring of being recatted with a new cat in the house, or whether it's the politics. It's a wonderful blog, and it's a literary blog, by which I don't mean it's just good for you. I mean it's fun, but it's also smart. What do you find is most telling when you find yourself writing a poem, as opposed to when something presents itself as a story?
Well, in a sort of practical sense, as opposed to a novel, a 12 or 15-line poem doesn't take quite as long, which can be rather nice, you know. So writing a novel is, you know, setting out on a long voyage. And you're not quite sure you're going to get there. Whereas a poem is sort of more something that you have in your hand and can work on and come back to and work on and come back to, but it doesn't eat you up.
Unless it's an epic poem.
Yeah, or unless it's sort of a big poem, and then they can indeed devour you, yeah.
Yeah, they can indeed. Well, it's because poetry is about distillation, at least for me. It's when Twitter came along, I thought, so what? Poets have been distilling for centuries. This is nothing.
They spell better too.
That's exactly. Yeah, we know how to get things in a nutshell and count ourselves kings and queens of infinite space. But some of your poems are in fact story poems as well. I mean, they tell stories. The storyteller in you will out no matter what discipline you're working in.
Yeah, that is true. And I like narrative poems. I grew up with the lays of ancient Rome and things like that people used to read. And I've never felt this absolute division between the lyric and the narrative that many poets and I guess some prose writers feel.
I don't feel it either.
It's funny. It's Virginia Woolf did not write poetry, but she never orated about the fact that prose writers can't write poetry and vice versa.
Precisely.
Which I think some people have been rather, particularly modernists, have been rather inclined to do. That sort of, you are a poet or you are not a poet. And if you are a poet, you can't be anything else. And that, I mean, starting with Goethe and people like that, that's silly.
Yeah, it's very silly. Well, but there are people, who are much more concerned with labels and boundaries than they are with what the content is of either. And it's very boring to me, I don't...
Yeah.
It's all about language and words and what makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and then I know that it's good and what it's called. And some things are very clearly poems, and some things are clearly not. But I'm just less interested in the labeling,
Right. Well, gosh, I've been fighting that all my life with the labeling certain kinds of fiction as genre and therefore inferior.
Yes.
It's
well, maybe
massively stupid.
Maybe they label in order to rank. Yes,
it's hierarchy, absolutely.
That's the whole purpose of it, yeah. So, and which is very boring in itself. Can I presume on you to read us some poems? Maybe
Sure.
Maybe a new one, and some poems from Finding My Elegy. That would be so lovely.
Well, sure. I will read one that was written to an assignment for my group. Mm-hmm. The assignment simply being to write a poem about a story that you heard or read. That was all.
Interesting.
So this is called The Story. It's just part of a story, actually, quite a lot of stories. The part where the third son or the stepdaughter sent on the impossible errand through the uncanny forest comes across a fox with its paw caught in a trap, or little sparrows fallen from the nests, or some ants in trouble in a puddle of water. He frees the fox. She puts the fledglings in the nest. They get the ants safe to their anthill. The little fox will come back later and lead him to the castle where the princess is imprisoned. The sparrows will fly before her to where the golden egg is hidden. The ants will sort out every poppy seed for them from the heap of sand before the fatal morning. And I don't think I can add much to this story. All my life, it's been telling me, if I'll only listen, who the hero is and how to live happily ever after.
Oh, that's a lovely one. That's quite a poem to have turned out on assignment.
Well, we have all found in this group that the assignments often, whether they're subject or form, they bring out something that we didn't know we had to say.
Well,
and it's particularly mysterious when it's an assignment in form, write a villanelle, write a sonnet,
yes,
write
of course,
quatrains.
of course.
And think, oh dear, I can't do that. And then you find that, oh yeah, and then the form makes you say things.
Yeah. Poetry for me is the place where I find out what I knew that I didn't know I knew it.
Well, writing is pretty much that.
Yes, that's very true, but especially in poetry. In poetry, it comes up and it knocks me on the side of my head and says, you didn't know that you knew that? It's quite extraordinary. Oh, more, please. More poems, please.
Oh, here's a little one, which is sort of about writing fantasy and writing poetry. It's called Almost and Always. Almost they were the amethyst mountains and the clear, faint hollowing of horns in far forests over the twilight border, and faded into daylight and the noise of traffic. Always the half-guessed, miraculous line trembled on the edge of being in this language and was almost and faded into the expectable, ordinary poem.
Oh, I love that poem. That poem is in Finding My Elegy, isn't it?
Yeah, that and what? Shall I read one more?
Yes, please.
Shall I read the funny one?
You can read anything you feel like.
Well, this one is called She Remembers the Famous Poets.
Oh, yes, good.
And it starts with two quotations, one from Ronsard. Quand vous serez bien vieille au soir à la chandelle. And the other from Yeats. When you are old and gray and full sleep. Now I am old and gray and sit alone beside my fire. I think of lovely boys I knew when I was young and fair. And some of them wrote poems about my eyes and their desire. My winsome Irish Willie and my gallant French Pierre. It makes me smile to think about how we made love and all the tender things they told me as I gaze into the flames these winter nights. But Lord, I never can recall a single word of all they wrote, or even their last names. That's sort of mean, but...
Oh, no, I just love it. I love it because both the Ronsard and the Yeats are, in effect, poems where the literature majors among our listeners here will know this, are poems in which the male poet is basically wagging a finger at the beloved woman and saying, you'll be sorry you didn't recognize me for this great lover who I was, and you'll regret it, and love passed you by, and you'll be sorry. And it's so wonderful that she's sitting there and she just can't remember who the hell they were.
Remember she liked them.
No, yeah.
Nice boys, yeah.
Absolutely. I had a good time. They were fun, and they wrote something, but that's gone. And their names are kind of who was that? It's just wonderful. It's just lovely.
I wrote this for a local award I got, and it's called "Read at the Award Dinner, May 1996." Beware when you honor an artist. You are praising danger. You are holding out your hand to the dead and the unborn. You are counting on what cannot be counted. The poet's measures serve anarchic joy. The storyteller tells one story, freedom. Above all, beware of honoring women artists, for the housewife will fill the house with lions, and in with the grandmother come bears, wild horses, great horned owls, coyotes.
Oh, I love that one. I love that. It's one of my favorite. And my copy of Finding My Elegy, that's one that has the page naughtily turned down. It's dog-eared. It's dog-eared. It's marked.
I'm glad you dog-ear pages. I do all the time.
Oh, goody. We won't tell, obviously. Any of the hundreds and hundreds of people listening to this will not tell either. But yeah, I do. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's lovely to hear them in your own voice. And I'm sorry to have to interrupt that voice again, as Women's Media Center Live celebrates the life and the work of Ursula K. Le Guin. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll be back directly with more of Ursula, talking about science, the craft of writing, the difference between information and knowledge, and reading more poetry. So don't go away.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back again in our ongoing tribute to the life and work of Ursula K. Le Guin. As time went on, I was able to convince Ursula to read more and more poems on the program, which actually she loved to do. The books referred to in this segment are one of her last books of poems, Finding My Elegy, and Late in the Day is where we begin our conversation with a book by that title. This book opens with a sort of a short introduction, which is remarks that you gave at a conference, Arts of Living in a Damaged Planet, with just beautiful stuff about poetry and science. And as I age, I become more in love with my craft as a poet, and more in love with science, and more drawn to the natural world. So when you write the following, it just explodes and flowers in my brain. Quote, "Science describes accurately from outside, poetry describes accurately from inside. Science explicates, poetry implicates. Both celebrate what they describe. We need the languages of both science and poetry to save us from merely stockpiling endless, quote, information that fails to inform our ignorance or our irresponsibility." Brava! That is profound.
Yeah, well, I meant every word.
Yeah, and it is deceptively simple and goes right to the point. And then at the end of this book, there's an afterword about you writing about form and free verse and free form. And for anyone who loves poetry, and for people who still have a sense of mystification about poetry, it is a must read. For the ones who feel somehow alienated from poetry, it's your door in, and for people who already love poems, you'll find yourself in a deeper, more meaningful space than you were before. And now to the poems, my dear.
Okay, well, I've got it open to the hymn to Aphrodite.
Oh.
So I will do that, although it's kind of maybe ought to come last, I don't know. Hymn to Aphrodite. Venus solis occasus orientisque, dea pacifica, foam-born, implacable, tender. War and storm serve you, and you wear the fiery tiara of the volcanoes. Young salmon swimming downriver and the old upstream to breed and die are yours, and the fog-drinking forests. Yours are the scattered emerald half-circles of islands, the lost islands. Yours are the sunken warships of the emperor and the slow swirl of pelagic polymers. The moon is your hand mirror. Mother of time and daughter of destruction, Your feet are light upon the waters. Death, your dog, follows you down the beaches, whining to see the breakers break into blossom, into immortal foam flowers, where you have left the bright track of your passing. Pity your fearful, foolish children, O Aphrodite of Fukushima.
Ah, that the ending of that poem, when we suddenly are plunged into modern times and then realize backwards that the whole poem has been in the past and the present and frighteningly the future, and we suddenly come across Fukushima, is one of the most stunning endings I have encountered in poetry in English.
Well, I'm glad I could do it.
It lands with a chill at the spine and the hair on the back of one's head standing up. We don't expect that with Aphrodite, where we open up thinking, oh, there she is balancing on the half shell. How nice. Wow, gee. And wow, the poet grasps our hand and takes us somewhere else.
This is kind of Lucretius's. That's why I started with a line in my own Latin, probably not very good Latin, but it's Lucretius's Venus, who is kind of the mother destroyer. Yeah,
right. It's the Kali. She's the Greek Kali in a sense.
Well, how about a few quatrains?
Oh, lovely.
They go lightly. I'll read 3. I like quatrains. Never could write haiku, but I love quatrains. The salt. Para Gabriela. The salt in the small bowl looks up at me with all its little glittering eyes and says, I am the dry sea. Your blood tastes of me. And this is Artemisia tridentata.
Oh, I love this.
Some ruthlessness befits old age. Tender young herbs are generous and pliant. But in dry solitudes, the gray-leaved sage stands unforthcoming and defiant. And this one's called Written in the Dark, and it really was. I have the manuscript, which is scrawled all over a small notebook page in pencil. The lionesses of the mind are dangerous. Big, sinuous, dun bodies range the plains of sleep. The fangs are sharp. The fire-yellow eyes fix on my heart.
Oh. The lionesses of the mind. I mean, that phrase alone fills me with envy. They say that a writer can give no greater compliment to another writer than saying, "Oh, you wrote that first. You found that. That phrase found you before it found." Oh, and but it doesn't come from my lower self. It's not that kind of envy.
No, poetic envy. I don't know. There's all this anxiety of influence stuff that seems to be a male thing to me.
Yeah, this is just wow, yummy, yummy
Ooh.
kind of envy. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Thanks for giving me that. Yeah.
Oh wow. In the afterward and in other books and in blogs that you've written on your wonderful website, which is ursulakliguin.com. And is filled with goodies, listeners. If you haven't gone to it, go to it and have the time of your life. Reward your brain and your heart. But you have campaigned, with as a leading voice against the sort of commodification of literature. And there's this wonderful paragraph that you write toward the end of the book in the afterword, or the epilogue. Books aren't just commodities. The profit motive is often in conflict with the aims of art. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but then so did the divine right of kings. And you go on to say, I've had a long career as a writer and a good one in good company. Here at the end of it, I don't want to watch American literature get sold down the river. We who live by writing and publishing want and should demand our fair share of the proceeds. But the name of our beautiful reward isn't profit. Its name is freedom. In other words, that the sales forces at publishers shouldn't dictate what gets published and writers shouldn't collaborate with that. Thank you for that.
Well, that's what I said at the American Book Awards when they gave me the medal. And
yeah, they must have been squirming in their seats, I'm sure, some of them.
Well, the Amazon table was notably silent.
Oh, God. Well, more poems, please. Another?
Well, how about New Year's Day? This was written to the assignment in our little group.
Mm-hmm.
Was to write a curtal sonnet, which is a form Gerard Manley Hopkins invented. And it's really scary to write something that Gerard Manley Hopkins invented.
Yes.
And it's not an easy form. But anyway, this is what happened. New Year's Day. An eagle anger with a broken wing struggles inside my body and strikes blind to break the iron bars with iron beak. Far too late now for cure or soft healing. To such deep injury no hand is kind. Within me is the way the bird must take. In this cage, all the sky she can attain. The wide, clear, patient silence of the mind, where flight goes far and fierce thought can forsake words and seek distances out past all pain, ache, and heartache.
Oh, wow!
It's a beautiful form.
Yes.
It's not a sonnet, but I can see why he called it that, because there's that kind of break and change in the middle of it.
Yes, it's where.
But then there's the 2-beat last line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been playing lately with a mixture of blank verse and free verse in the poem, and then winding up with a strict rhyme couplet at the end, and it refreshes the ear if you haven't had strict rhyme. In the poem leading up to it, then suddenly rhyme comes with a renewed power.
That's a Shakespeare trick, my dear. You and Shakespeare.
Look who's talking. Can we squeeze in between? That's a short little poem, but it's so stunning.
Let me get the page on that.
57.
57, thank you. Yes. Between. Between the acts, the interval. The leaves were late to fall this fall. Between the verdict and the doom, a whisper in the waiting room. A non-event between events, holding a secret and a sense. A winter wind just whispers where 2 winter trees stand tense and bare.
Nothing sentimental there. Wow. Wow. It's like walking on a winter beach, the kind of wild beauty that one finds there with no sentimentality and a kind of purity that is maybe, I don't know, transformed by the indifference of the universe that is almost refreshing. Certainly in a world that attributes everything.
I think it's hard to be sentimental in the far western landscape. Between the desert and the mountains and the sea.
Well, yes.
it's and the very large sky, I am very grateful that I'm a Westerner.
Well, I'm very grateful that you are, period. Never mind what follows on the R.
Well, that's mutual.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, my dear friend, for being and for writing these poems. Dare I ask what you're working on now?
It's poetry now. These stories seem to have left me. The short stories left when I was around my early 80s, and the my last novel, I'm sure, was Lavinia. I just don't have the physical strength to write a novel. That sounds silly, but it takes a lot of strength and energy to write a novel.
Oh, no, I understand it completely.
But thank goodness the poetry is with me, and my group is with me to needle me into remembering that I have to write it.
I'm just very glad that poetry, which is the bedrock, certainly for me, is still...
that's where I started, and if that's where I end, fine.
It's flowing freely. Thank you for the book. Thank you for you. I send you much love, and I'm very grateful to you for being with us today on the program.
Thank you for having me, Robin.
It's time for one last brief pause here at Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan, and I'll return coming right up with some fighting words.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back to some fighting words. Now about those scraps in Ursula's sewing basket of life. The one filled with truths, remember, as opposed to surface fact, however satisfying that may be, to be voted into the American Academy of Arts and Letters. One rather large scrap is that Ursula was greatly influenced by a happy childhood. Her parents, Theodora Krakow and Alfred Kroeber, two intellectuals who introduced her to Virginia Woolf early on, were themselves anthropologists, known for their groundbreaking work in making first contact with Ishi, the last survivor of his entire indigenous people. Ishi had emerged from a solitary Stone Age existence hidden in the mountains in the 1920s, with no one alive who could understand his language. The Kroegers managed to learn that language, and he lived with this adopted family under their protection until he died of natural causes. Theodora, Ursula's mother, wrote a book about him, Ishi of Two Worlds, that's still in print. Another scrap in the basket would be Ursula's 63-year-long marriage to Charles Le Guin, historian, writer, superb gardener, and sweet man. It ranged from wild young romance in Paris to these closing years where they would sit in silence together on their small porch, looking out at Charles' large, sprawling garden and beyond to Mount St. Helens in the distance, sipping wild turkey and listening to Schubert. Another scrap, her fury over what was happening in the White House, in Congress, in America. She believed it would pass eventually if we worked at it hard enough. And she believed that writers were central to that fight, that writers must remember to be the keepers and re-propagators of freedom, as if freedom lived in contraband heirloom seeds that we would need to re-sow through our words. We spoke by phone less than 3 weeks before she died, already ill, and as she put it, so lazy now and shuffling from room to room like an old hound dog. She'd gone on the Women's March last year and lamented that she was too tired to go this year, but the revival of grassroots activism enchanted her. She wanted to know what I thought about the Me Too movement, and we enthused about it together. She was working on new poems, and she was utterly unafraid of death, and had long ago already picked out which verse of Lao Tzu, in her own warm, humorous, and sexism-free translation of the Tao Te Ching, which one she wished to be read when she died. We spoke about death, in fact, and our mutual impatience with people who perpetually try to stay young. Arrested development, she snorted. And I added, oh, for God's sake, it's just death, after all. At that she began to giggle, and it was infectious. I joined her, and we laughed so hard, maybe for a full minute or two, that my ribs hurt later on. She was my lodestar, the intelligence I went to for advice or stern admonition, my elder. I have no elders left now, and I'm concerned that others regard me as such, as if I knew anything at all. I see now what she meant when she said that about herself. But her friendship was a gift of wisdom and delight, and her art, available to all of us, is an enduring gift of joy. This world is a bit dimmer and colder for the lack of her now, because Ursula K. Guin has left the planet. Those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag #FightingWords. And that's it for today. This program is syndicated, but if you can't find the broadcast on a radio station in your area, you can always visit us at WMCLive.com for the show, plus the archive of all our previous episodes, and at iTunes, where you can stream, download, and subscribe to the show's podcast. Also, be sure to find WMC Live on Facebook and Twitter. And you can check out my website and blog at robinmorgan.net and find me on Facebook and Twitter, too. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Opinions expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. WMC President and Executive Producer of this program, Julie Burton, and our founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us, and don't forget to join us next week right here on Women's Media Center Live.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, tune your radio to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan on WMCLive.com. Talk radio with a brain.